Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is the day after talking Duck Sports. I'm War Duck. And so I know it's not the day after the Civil War game, but I wanted to wait till all the other games were done to kind of see what happened and to talk about those scenarios a little bit. But Washington they've squeaked by almost every single one of their games. And now Oregon has dominated all of their games from that loss earlier in the season. Now they meet in the Pac-12 title game, and Oregon is a 2-touchdown favorite starting out on the bets, and I just don't see it playing that way. Washington has a way of just staying in games and making plays when they have to make. I don't think this is a 2-touchdown game. I give Oregon best at 10 points. I think that Oregon's going to come out to try to prove a point. I think Oregon gets it done. I think Washington takes an early lead in probably the first half, and then Oregon comes back in the second half, makes those adjustments, and puts it on Washington, outscores Washington in the second half, and wins by 10 points. I'm going to say, though, this score is probably somewhere around 37-27. I'm going to say somewhere right around in there. I think those mistakes that Oregon made earlier in the season don't transpire as they did this time. But, all right, enough about that. What we have to talk about now is a little crazy. So, yeah. And that is Johnathan Smith leaving Oregon State. So Oregon State loses the Civil War, and then the next day they lose their coach. And this was a shock to me. I think this was a shock to a lot of people. I definitely know this was a huge shock to Oregon State fans because if you can't keep your coach that played at your school, I don't know where you go from there. And then with all the uncertainty around the Pac-2, I don't know how you go about hiring your next coach with all that uncertainty that's going on there. I was like, that's Johnathan Smith. I think, oh man, this is hard because as a coach, if you're a coach and you want to coach in the big time, Michigan State offering you the job, I guess you take it. But this is a huge stab in the back for the Beaver community because I think you saw a guy in Jonathan Stewart that has started to build your program. He played at your school for 4 years. He was a Beaver believer. And then all of a sudden, poof, he's gone and he dashes for more money. Because let's be honest, this is really what this is all about. More money and maybe the uncertainty. But I didn't see this. I thought Johnathan Smith would be a Beaver until he decided he was done coaching, to be honest. I don't know. I'm still in shock over this. I've had a day to digest it, but I'm still kind of in shock over this. I did not see this coming because, when you look to coaches, you look for those ties to your school. And what bigger ties to your school do you have other than the guy that played 4 years at your school? Whew. Man, I don't know. So, I don't know. Put your comments down. I feel like I honestly feel bad for the Beavers because this is just bad. It's just bad. It's bad timing. It's just bad all around. I would love to hear Johnathan Smith's true feelings. You'll never get that. He's never going to say anything about that. It'll all be about the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. But was it the money? Was it something at Oregon State that he didn't like? What drove him away is really, because I don't see this as luring somebody away. I see this as being driven away because he was your guy. Like, he was a Beaver through and through. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one to swallow. I don't know. That's just a tough one to swallow. All right. So, we have the Civil War. Oregon came in and was not going to disappoint. They made sure that what happened last year did not happen. They went out with the final Civil War. The last one is for the foreseeable future. And now with Johnathan Smith leaving Oregon State, I think that puts this into even more of a kind of a nexus where I don't see this game really happening. Because, in all honesty, what do you have from Oregon State? Like, what, unless you're going to pull like a mid-major thing and make Oregon pay you every time you play that game, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't see this game restarting anytime soon, especially with now them having to find a new coach and Oregon State having to rebuild all over again. But this game was 31-7. This game was never close. Oregon handled it from start to finish, and I have to say is, if you didn't watch this game, watch the first 9 minutes of this game. The very first drive for Oregon pretty much set the tone, and that was all it took, really, was the very first drive. And Oregon basically, you know, they did a drive and it was 9 minutes long. I can't even remember how many plays, but it was almost all of the first quarter. And then it was just kind of crazy that I haven't seen Oregon do a drive like that in a long time. And basically that was the first quarter, right? Oregon scores in the first quarter, and then Oregon State doesn't, and then Oregon comes down, and then all of a sudden it's the second quarter. And so it was quite a performance, quite a drive. I just haven't seen a drive like that from Oregon. 9 minutes, just grind it right out. But you know, that played into Oregon. I mean, that played into Oregon State's game plan, sort of, was make them grind it out, make them make plays, and then keep the score manageable. Except for Oregon State didn't hold up there into the bargain, and Oregon just basically shut them down. And it was a real testament to this defense. I think the Oregon defense really shined for the most part in this game, because you really took Oregon State out of what they try to do, right? And here's the thing right here is, Oregon State is a rushing team. That's what they're known for. They're known for rushing. They had 53 yards. Think about that. Oregon held them to 53 yards and held them under 300 yards of total offense. That's pretty amazing. Third down was not great for Oregon, but fourth down was. Oregon State was 3 for 11, and Oregon was 5 for 11. But the thing about this is, Oregon was rarely in third down situations until later in the second half of this game. First half, they kind of just did anything they wanted to do. Fourth downs, Oregon State was 2 of 6, and Oregon was 2 for 2. Rushing yards, 53 to 113. I thought Oregon State did a really good job of holding Oregon's rushing game in check. There was only a couple plays that Oregon really had any like a large amount of rushing, but there was so many plays that it was like the last guy gets a fingertip on the ankle of a running back and he goes down. Otherwise, they're like gone. So you have to give Oregon State credit for holding Oregon's rushing game down to 113 yards. Passing, I mean, Bo Nix throws for 367. They were under 500 yards total offense. Oregon had 7 sacks. Oregon State throws the 1 interception. Oregon, and they both punted twice. And penalty yards, for the most part, Oregon had 6, but that feels like they didn't have it feels like they had their penalties under control a little bit, right? There was some personal foul. There was a bunch of pass interference, but in general, 6 penalties seems like a win for Oregon, since usually they have 9 or 9 plus. I think they lead the Pac-12 in penalties, but man. All right, no fumbles. And then time of possession, Oregon 34 minutes time of possession. And I think most of this was probably in the first half. So just a dominant performance. Look at the individual stats. Bo Nix, 33 for 48. I think that's somewhere around 80% or something like that. Just continues to dominate and play the game that he wants to play. It's impressive. It's impressive to watch. So he averaged 9.2, had 2 touchdowns. He also had a rushing touchdown. And I thought this was the first time that Bo Nix really sold out on the rush. Like, a lot of times earlier in the season, I thought you saw him kind of take a couple, but this is, I think, the first time that you saw maybe designed plays for him to go in and score, especially on the score. I thought that was, a beautiful play call. But I think this Washington game, I think Bo Nix is gonna have to become a runner. Now, you're at the end of the season. It's the Pac-12 title game. I think Bo Nix is going to sell out this time. He kept himself healthy the whole year by kind of just sitting back in the pocket and not really running it. And I think now is the time that Bo Nix shows the whole nation that he can do what he needs to do. So yeah, that's my prediction in this Washington game, is that Bo Nix is going to have some designed runs. And I think he's going to sell out on this game, and it's going to show all of his tools that he has. So we got Tez Johnson. He has 11 catches for 137 yards. Troy Franklin, 9 catches for 128 yards. Had the touchdown pass. And that was like right at the end of the half with, 50? I think they went, 70 yards or 80 yards with 58 seconds left, and Troy Franklin, beautiful catch. Bucky Irving had a pass reception, but if you look at Bucky Irving had 14 carries for 41 yards, 2.9 average. That's way below his season average. They were keen on Bucky Irvington. Every time Bucky Irving was in the game, Oregon State made sure to locate him and make sure to get a body on him. So even if he did get the ball, he was being held in check behind the line. But you get him out on the edge, and he makes 5 catches, 17 yards for a 3.1 average along the 14. And that was just them keen on Bucky. Take the playmakers away, make other people beat you, which is what Bo Nix does. He throws to Terrence Ferguson, has a long 15 yards. He throws to Trayshawn Holden. He threw one to Gary Bryant, and Gary Bryant came up with looked like an ankle injury, although I think Lanning said that he came back later and thought he was okay. They'll have him evaluated, but look at this. 7 yards, 9 yards, 10 yards, 14 yards, 24, 15, 41, 32. And it's just an impressive average. The only one that, they held Bucky, like I said, they held Bucky Irving in check, and that's just is what it is. So, all right, so moving on here. Oregon played some basketball this weekend. And they had 2 games, and the bad news here is you have both your centers, 7-foot Nate Biddle and 7-foot Dante, are both out for an extended period of time. Both of them had surgeries. I don't know that you'll see either of them back before the end of January. So that's huge loss because you're talking about 20, 25, 30 rebounds and easily 20 points. And if you look at this game against Santa Clara, Oregon, they were in it, but when you look at the rebounds, is when you seen Oregon get out rebounded like this? Got out rebounded by 8, offensive rebounds by 2. The assists, steals, and blocks were, pretty thing. Oregon had 10 turnovers. That's a lot for what they have been doing. And then again, they leave 24 points? Or no, sorry. They leave 9 points out there with free throws, and that definitely could have changed the game. Even if they had made half of those, that makes this much closer of a game than you're only down by 1. So, that's a huge loss with Nate and Dante both having surgeries last week, and they'll be out. I think they said 6 to 8 weeks, I think is what they were guesstimating. So, and then even when they come back, they haven't played and they're conditioning. So that's just going to be a thing. And it's really, it's rough for Oregon because now they're having to play not only shorthanded, but they've lost their defense, and they've lost that rebounding and the extra points that are scored. And that's going to be rough. So Oregon drops one to Santa Clara, and then they go and, Saturday, or no, was it Saturday? Yeah, it was Saturday. They play. No, this was anyway. They played Alabama, and Alabama is a really high scoring team, really good shooting team, and they were in this game a lot for both games. They were in it until kind of like the second quarter, and then it kind of got away from them a little bit. Marquise Sears goes for 27 points, but that's what he's going to do every single game. Although you have Kuznard scored 24 points, but again, if you look down here, you have the rebounding. They got out-rebounded by 14. That's huge. And then offensive rebounds, they got out-rebounded by 6. Oregon had 20 assists, so they were like I said, they were in this game until kind of the end, and then the rebounding kind of became a problem for them. Oregon had 12 turnovers. Again, that's a far cry from the 2 to 6 that they were doing before. But better to see the free throws here at 12 of 15, although 15 seems kind of low compared to the 28 from Alabama. I didn't get to watch either of these games because they were not on TV. They were on some other thing that I don't have, so I kind of listened to them on the radio a little bit. So, yeah. But Oregon is going to struggle right now. They are going to struggle because without your rebounding, you're in trouble. And what's sad about this is there was this highly anticipated matchup December 2nd against Michigan, and now that game has lost a little luster of that, and because I just don't see Oregon able to recover those missed rebounds and those extra points that Dante and Nate Biddle provide. That's just too big of a loss to lose both of them at the same time for about the same amount of time. And I don't know that it's gonna be really rough for Oregon because they got to make it a long way um, before they get those guys back, and so we'll just have to see if Altman can get that team playing. Maybe they come out and figure out a different way to play and to get over those rebounds. But this team is really young. I don't know when they had some other guards that were out with injuries. I don't know when they come back, and so it's going to be hard for Oregon to really do a whole lot when they have so many guys out with injuries. So yeah, Mookie Cook and who's the other guy that was out? Jackson. Yeah, I think those two guys are out with injuries. So maybe if they get them back, they add some scoring and maybe Oregon can overcome that. But I don't know. It's going to be rough for basketball for the next couple months without those two guys. You hate to see it because it looked like Oregon had something brewing this year. But with that, we're going to be out of here. And we got next Friday's Pac 12 championship game. So we will be back for that. And I probably will release that video on Saturday. So with that, we're out of here for now. Much love all. We will catch you next time.